If you have ever stubbed your toe in the middle of the night, passed a kidney stone, or touched a hot pan, you have probably asked yourself some version of the exact same question. Why does the alarm system have to be so damn loud? From a purely mechanical standpoint, the human body is an absolute marvel of engineering, but our pain reception system feels like it was designed by a sadist. When you injure yourself, the agony is blinding. It hijacks your entire brain. It can cause you to throw up, black out, or go into systemic shock. If evolution is supposed to optimize us for survival, why didn't natural selection come up with a better alert system? Why didn't we just evolve a biological check engine light? Like a mild, painless buzzing sensation in your brain that calmly notifies you, hey, your hand is currently on fire, you should probably move it. Why did evolution actively hardwire us to suffer? To answer that, we have to look at what actually happens when you turn the alarm system off entirely. There is a very rare genetic mutation in the human gene pool known as SCN9A. If you are born with a specific variation of this gene, you are born with a condition called congenital insensitivity to pain, or CIP. People with CIP are completely normal in almost every way. They can feel heat and cold. They can feel the texture of a blanket. They can feel the pressure of a hug, but they cannot feel physical pain. If you are thinking this sounds like the origin story of a superhero, the medical reality is completely the opposite. Being born without pain is one of the most dangerous biological deficits a human being can have. Children born with CIP routinely chew off the tips of their own tongues while eating. They rub their eyes so hard they scratch their corneas and go blind. They will walk on a fractured leg for weeks until the bone grinds itself to dust, simply because they don't get the physical signal telling them to favor the other leg. Historically, people with this condition rarely survived past their 20s, usually dying from massive infections triggered by injuries they didn't even know they had. Pain is not a punishment. It is a highly aggressive, non-negotiable bodyguard. But this brings us right back to the paradox. Okay, we need an alert system to keep us from destroying our own bodies. But why does the alert have to hurt? The answer comes down to human psychology and the brutal reality of the prehistoric world. Imagine it is 50,000 years ago. You are out hunting and you severely twist your ankle. If your body only gave you a mild, painless check engine notification, what would you do? You are hungry. The tribe needs food. The antelope is getting away. Because humans are incredibly stubborn, goal-oriented animals, you would simply ignore the notification and keep running on the twisted ankle until the ligaments completely snapped. Evolution knows you are stubborn, so it rigged the system. When you damage tissue, special nerve endings called nociceptors fire a signal up your spinal cord and into your brain. But that signal doesn't just go to the somatosensory cortex, the part of the brain that tells you where the injury is. It simultaneously blasts a signal straight into the amygdala and the anterior cingulate cortex. These are the exact same regions of the brain that process intense emotional distress, fear, and panic. Evolution intentionally hardwired the physical sensation of tissue damage directly into the emotional center for suffering. It doesn't just tell you that your ankle is injured. It forces you to feel profound emotional misery about it. It makes the experience so terrible that you are forced to stop what you are doing, drop to the ground, and protect the injury. More importantly, the emotional trauma guarantees that your brain will form a permanent memory of the event, ensuring you never make that same mistake again. You can't ignore the check engine light, because evolution made the check engine light paralyzing. But if you look at the human experience, this survival theory seems to fall apart when we look at chronic pain. Acute pain, like touching a hot stove or breaking an arm, makes perfect evolutionary sense. The pain forces you to pull your hand away or put your arm in a sling so it can heal. Once the tissue is repaired, the pain goes away. But what about lower back pain? What about migraines, arthritis, or fibromyalgia? Right now, roughly 20% of the global adult population suffers from chronic pain. Pain that lasts for months, years, or decades. It doesn't protect you from a predator. It doesn't teach you a valuable survival lesson. It just drains your energy, ruins your mobility, and drives you into deep depression. If evolution is so smart, why did it leave millions of us trapped in an endless loop of agony that serves absolutely no biological purpose? For decades, medicine treated chronic pain as just a prolonged version of acute pain. Doctors assumed that if you hurt for 10 years, it just meant your tissue hadn't healed. But massive shifts in neurobiology over the last few years have completely rewritten our understanding of human suffering. The 2026 scientific consensus is that chronic pain is not a symptom of an injury. It is a completely separate disease of the nervous system itself. It comes down to two major biological failures: evolutionary mismatch and a neurological software glitch called central sensitization. Let's look at evolutionary mismatch first. Humans are walking around in bodies that were optimized for a prehistoric hunter-gatherer lifestyle. But we live in a modern, industrialized world, and our ancient hardware is buckling under the pressure. Take lower back pain. For millions of years, our mammalian ancestors walked on all fours. The spine acted like a suspension bridge, perfectly distributing weight. Then we stood upright. We took that horizontal suspension bridge and flipped it vertically like a flagpole, instantly putting massive crushing pressure on the lower lumbar discs. That was a trade-off evolution was willing to make, because freeing up our hands allowed us to use tools and build fires. Furthermore, in the prehistoric world, the average human life expectancy was around 30 to 35 years. You usually died of an infection, a predator, or starvation long before your spinal discs had time to severely degenerate. Today, we routinely live to be 80 years old, and we spend the vast majority of those years sitting completely motionless in office chairs, a posture that puts exponentially more pressure on the spine than walking does. Chronic joint and back pain is the literal consequence of taking a skeleton optimized for 30 years of sprinting across the savannah and forcing it to sit in a cubicle for half a century. We are pushing the hardware past its warranty, but posture and age don't explain everything. They don't explain why someone can have a minor surgery, heal perfectly, and still be in excruciating nerve pain 5 years later. This brings us to the second failure, the glitch. Your nervous system is plastic, meaning it can physically change and rewire itself based on your experiences. Usually, neuroplasticity is a great thing. It's how you learn to play the piano or speak a new language. Your brain fires the same signals over and over until it builds a highly efficient, permanent highway for that information. But over the last few years, neuroscientists have discovered that the exact same learning mechanism applies to pain. If you suffer a severe injury or deal with prolonged inflammation, your nociceptors are screaming at your brain non-stop for weeks. Over time, the nervous system physically rewires itself to become better and faster at transmitting that pain signal. The biological volume dial gets cranked to maximum and gets stuck there. Recent research has pinpointed exactly why this happens, and it has to do with a specific type of cell in your brain and spinal cord called glial cells. For a long time, scientists thought glial cells were just the glue that held neurons together, but we now know they act as the immune system for your brain. When you're in severe pain for a long time, these glial cells become hyperactivated. They flood your nervous system with inflammatory chemicals. This neuroinflammation causes your pain receptors to become incredibly sensitive. They start firing at the slightest provocation. Eventually, they don't even need a trigger. They just start firing on their own. The original tissue damage, the broken bone or the torn muscle, is completely healed. There is no physical injury left, but the alarm system is still ringing because the nervous system learned the pain, and due to the neuroinflammation, it forgot how to turn the alarm off. This is central sensitization. It is a biological software crash. Chronic pain isn't an evolutionary strategy. It is a fatal flaw in the way our nervous system learns. When you step back and look at the whole picture, the paradox of human pain becomes chillingly clear. Evolution didn't design a perfect, flawless machine. It designed a machine that was just good enough to keep you alive long enough to pass on your genes. The alarm system has to be agonizing, because if it wasn't, you would ignore it and accidentally destroy yourself. It is brutal. It is traumatic. And it is frequently prone to terrible glitches that trap people in loops of chronic suffering. But the next time you burn your hand or stub your toe, take a second to appreciate the agony, because that awful, blinding flash of pain is the ultimate proof that your body's million-year-old defense system is still standing guard. It hurts because you are alive, and it hurts to ensure you stay that way.